Hello, welcome back. It has been several days for you, but for us, it has been mere moments. Ha 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 ha. So, okay, Tara, to continue, if you have not
Yes.
heard our last episode, we talked about
It's really important.
Chrono Trigger music, and we then kind of began to talk about how music in video games is becoming closer and closer to film scores, and whether or not that is for the better or for the worse. Was video game music better when it was limited to 8 and 16-bit, or is it better now when they have orchestras? What do we think?
Personally, I kind of like the old music better, which is interesting because most of these games came out before I was even alive, but as I've seen like more remakes of games come out, kind of like with Pokemon, because that's what I know best.
Yeah.
I love Gen 3 and I love Gen 4, and I feel like a lot of the tracks from Generation 3 were kind of ruined with like the new orchestration. Like, to me, it almost felt more authentic with like the 8-bit and the 16-bit, like the bit stuff compared to like the MIDI instruments. Like, I get that it makes it sound fuller, but I don't think there's anything wrong with including like real instruments, because like we cover that music as a living. But
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't imagine Chrono Trigger with real instruments like in the video game itself.
No, it's a disconnect there. But the graphics for the Gen 3 stuff were quite of an, like, completely overhauled too, right? So
Yeah.
so maybe it wouldn't really, maybe they work well for their own medium there. But I get what you mean with the lack of authenticity. But it might just be that you're so used to hearing it.
Yeah.
Like, because I think the Game Boy Advance, like, the sounds are quite bad. Like, some of the worst, honestly. That's not to say, like, compositions are bad or anything, right? It's just that using any other system almost would sound better. Yeah, it's something, it's totally, like, I can't say one way or another, but I can kind of attest to the fact that, for sure, video games as a whole, not just the soundtracks, are becoming more cinematic in the art direction, in the addition of, a lot more cut scenes a lot of the time. And these, of course, I'm not talking about, like, independent games, because there's always a wealth of those that, like, speak back to the old stuff. But I'm talking about, like, the newest generation console stuff, for the most part, is quite a bit more cinematic, because they can, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I do think it's like the gameplay elements, the games themselves are not as pick up and play and just like good old fashioned fun.
Yeah.
There's definitely ones that are. And I love big open world stuff, right? That's kind of my favorite kind of game, like action RPG type open world things. But I don't know, like the music being cinematic, like, it's like what you said, Tara, at the end of the last episode. Tara said, because our brains can't concentrate on so many things at once, so you can't have, like, a full-on cutscene with dialogue and then have this, like, catchy tune being like, ding, 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 in the background.
Right.
You can't concentrate on too many things. So there's less use of, like, clear melody, I would say, a lot of the time. Like, what are some characteristics of music that you guys would call more cinematic and maybe more modern?
Well, honestly, like, having more of an atmospheric, I guess, feel to them, or, I don't know, I feel like most of it nowadays is more just underscoring.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's just there to support what's actually happening verbally.
Or visually,
And
right?
so there's no real melody going on in the music, or, there's nothing super, I guess, like, how do I even say it? There's nothing that really, like, piques my interest when it comes to underscoring and just music that's kind of below the talking. There is something that someone did. There's an experiment someone did, and I used this for one of my sources for my paper on Uematsu. So you have like Final Fantasy VII scene, the flower scene when like Cloud falls through like the hole in the church or whatever and like onto the flower bed. And Aerith is there, or Aerith, whichever one you prefer. And you have like the dialogue happening. Obviously it's silent dialogue in the original, and you have the music playing, and the music is basically Aerith's theme. So which is very melodic, very thematic, very like gorgeous. And this person did an experiment. He had a video where the original scene played as is with the talking, just the silent dialogue in the PlayStation and the music playing. And then he also started to do the same scene, but what he did is he had himself and a friend do dialogue and actually speak the dialogue on top of the music playing. And you can totally hear the disconnect and just how different it is when you have those two things clashing, like the thematic music and the voice acting. And it just doesn't work. And he's the one that said you can't have, like, our brains cannot focus on those two things at once. So the music usually just has to take a back seat to the voice acting. It was really interesting for me to actually experiencing that firsthand, because obviously I've played Final Fantasy VII all the way through a few years ago, so I know that scene very fondly, and having that refresher first and then listening to it again with the voice acting, I was like, no, this is all wrong. Like I can't focus on both of them. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, I just think they really don't have much of a choice but to make it more atmospheric and kind of setting the scene in terms of the music when it comes to the voice acting, or just making it more cinematic in terms of like the cutscenes and whatnot. Either that or just the music is just more in the background in terms of the volume level,
Right.
It's just more there just to add to what's already happening, instead of it being the central focus, which is what happened in the older video games, is the music was all that you really heard, especially Final Fantasy VII. That's all that you heard,
Yeah.
There was no talking or anything. There were barely any sound effects. The music was all that you heard the entire playthrough. So we're moving away from that now, and there's a lot of, like we were talking about, a lot of voice acting, a lot of sound effects, a lot of things that are changing with this video game industry.
Right.
And it's definitely impacting the music. I don't know if it's impacting it positively or not, but it's definitely forcing it to change.
So maybe, it's kind of evolving with the medium itself. And probably from a musical composition standpoint, although we have this, you could essentially write for whatever set of instruments you want, full orchestra, use any synth, like, obviously we're the most advanced we are now audio-wise than we have ever been, because that's how time works, haha.
Yes.
Haha.
So, but then again, like, from a music composition standpoint, it almost feels sometimes as if we've gone backwards, and that, like, and I mean that as in having OSTs where every single track on it could work as a standalone composition and be listened to outside of the fact that it's a video game, and have someone go, this is a great composition, rather than almost needing to be connected as an underscoring to some sort of, cinematic visual or audio, like otherwise dialogue or something element going on, right? So that's kind of Breath of the Wild. Kind of wanted to segue into that, because this is kind of like the new, like, hot topic in terms of, you know what I mean? Like, is the music in Breath of the Wild good or bad? Those are almost bad qualifiers to use, like good or bad.
Yeah.
But, it's different. Okay, we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But music in the Zelda series has been such a staple, and has, like, throughout it, like, since pretty much the beginning, has been like even story element, right? You got your ocarina, you have your little harp thingy, you have Ballad of the Windfish stuff. Like it's
So good.
it's all been very audio centric. And you know, the Wind Waker, he's got a baton and he's like conducting the wind in different time signatures. So
Yep.
this is like, oh, this is a departure, right? There are a few, I would say, great tracks in it. Like, fully fleshed out, really great tracks. One of them that I'm thinking of is the battle of one of the divine beasts. The elephant one. What's it called? Anyway, it's like... it's like this cinematic experience that you're playing, but it's like, in the background, it's like this... It's just really good music. I love that. But it's not a tune. Like, I wouldn't call it, like, that's a good tune. I'd be like, this is some, like, epic moment. You're riding on the back of this, like, shark man who is somehow also sexy. I don't understand, but... So, okay, it's a departure. Tonally ambiguous most of the time. There is no melody. It's like a sprinkling of some piano notes here and there.
Yeah.
The tunes that are present, the loops are actually quite short for a lot of them. The what you would call, I guess, like the shrine theme, which would be like a dungeon theme. It's the same tune for all 120 shrines, and there's a few notes in there. It's very atmospheric.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to going from the typical Zelda to something so different, which is Breath of the Wild, doing open world for Zelda is such a departure in the game itself. So it makes sense as to why they took the route they did musically, but it still was disappointing for me, especially after hearing the main theme and the trailer theme.
Yeah, because those were incredible.
Yes, they were. So I had my hopes up. I had high expectations, especially for this composer who has composed for Animal Crossing New Leaf, and she also helped out in Spirit Tracks as well, and Spirit Tracks has some great pieces as well. So to have, like, Drew has definitely played it the most out of all of us. I don't even have it, so this is all coming from people who've played it and stuff.
But
yeah, well, I mean, Ro obviously has as well, but yeah, Drew was talking about how in the overworld there really is no theme.
There's no overworld theme. Yeah,
it's just the piano, like chord sprinkles, whatever.
And that's like been a Zelda staple, right? You know, like every game you think of is like, well, it's the overworld theme of the game is kind of like almost the theme of the game itself, right?
Yeah,
like
very defining.
One of the most iconic tunes of all time is the original Zelda overworld theme. But yeah, this one has no real overworld theme. There's kind of sort of one when you ride a horse, kind of sort of, which is essentially just like piano sprinklings with slowed down Zelda's Lullaby, or the overworld, like original overworld theme, but like very slowed down. I think that's right, depending on day or night. But yeah, it's quite a departure. And like you said, Tara, like please correct me if I'm wrong, but that trailer theme, like that incredible one, and it was all cinematic and everything, like does not appear, like parts of it do, but the bulk composition of that does not appear in game. Like it was composed for the trailer.
Yeah, see, that was composed just for the trailer. Yeah. I think you are right.
Oh, that's such a tease.
Makes me so upset.
I know, it's such a tease.
Beautiful. Absolutely
Yeah, it was
beautiful.
phenomenal.
And I have not heard yet, and I know it kind of comes later, but I have not heard the main theme as it was heard in the E3 trailer. I have not heard that fleshed out in game. Like, I have not heard that completely in game. You hear little, like, da-da-da-da-da, and then it'll end there or something. Like, you'll hear that little, like, motive coming back a bunch of times.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I have not heard, like, that orchestrated as it was
The way
presented.
that it was. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And it's just like kind of depressing, you know? Like
A little
so many
bit.
of us were so excited to hear all this great music that's going to be in Breath of the Wild. Like, oh my gosh. And like the OST got leaked a few days earlier.
Yeah.
Like before, well, the whole game, I think maybe the Wii U game got leaked or something a few days before the official release date. So I was like, okay, you know what? It's going to be a while since I like don't really want to spend the money on a Switch, and I don't know if I'm going to get Breath of the Wild yet. So I just listened to the OST from what people were uploading, like raw, like rips off the game. And I was just like, man, why am I skipping so many of these?
Mm-hmm.
And then I came across the Sandworm one, and I like just the phase 1. I was just bouncing along to it, and I was like, okay, I like this. And then it went to phase 2, and I was like, oh my god, yes.
Yeah, that one's great.
And that was one of the few, very few, that I actually connected with, like without even having to play the game and understand what it was doing, like behind the scenes, you know. Because that is what most of this music is doing in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
It's just supporting what's happening in the game. So, I mean, some people were complaining on my cover, like, oh, you know, this everyone's covering this. I'm like, well, because it's one of the few iconic ones that people can cover and like, actually, you know, they actually like.
Like,
and
that's why there were
will
so many
listen to.
April Fools of,
Yeah.
like
Breath
you
of the
know,
Wild main
David
theme.
Ramos
Yeah.
at his like overworld theme and literally just improvising like doo-doo-doo, boo, at his piano, and he's like, yeah, like, you know, some people didn't even catch on that
It was a joke.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yep.
It's playing random
It's-
assortment of notes that sounded kind of okay, you know, stick to major and minor thirds and fifths and stuff, and you should be okay. But
I feel like people can't really complain about like covering the Zelda music. I can understand like within the first few days if you were doing something like major about a battle, but like even so, we're talking about how like a lot of this is more atmospheric and just kind of little flourishes than like full fleshed out tracks compared to what we're used to. So I don't think people can get really mad about this selection, or like they shouldn't. I should say they shouldn't like most of what I had heard before, because I didn't listen to the OST for like a couple days into when the game was released, but I like showed a friend of mine at college. I told her, I'm like, the Switch comes out today, like the new Zelda game comes out, and she's like, oh really? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, you should listen to the main theme. And I played it for her, and she was like so moved by it. She's like, I want to buy this game. And like that alone.
yeah, then imagine your friend getting the game and
Yeah.
being like, where is all of this fantastic music that I
Maybe
heard?
that was the bait, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that was their plan. To bait us with all this beautiful trailer and main theme music. And then, I mean, it's not like the music in the game is bad, but it's just not what we were expecting.
I kind of like that it's empty though, because like I watched my brother play a bit of it, like when I went home for break. Like that was like 2 days after the game had come out, and like I kind of like how it's just letting you experience it because it's so different from any
lets you
Zelda game that I've ever
absorb it.
seen. Yeah, it just lets you take everything in about like what's happening before you even add another element.
There's
That
kind
is
of
true.
there's kind of that notorious moment in Twilight Princess where you're trying to save Midna and Midna's lament is going, and it keeps getting interrupted by this stupid little, like, you know, bokoblin comes up and there's like like that
Oh, yeah.
battle music, and you're like, stop interrupting Midna's lament. Like, this is beautiful.
Beautiful.
So it's almost like the game is not, it's not interrupting your experience by throwing some kind of mega, like, boisterous theme at you, right? Could you imagine, because Twilight Princess, okay, that's probably the most boisterous overworld theme, I would say. Dun, da, dun, da, da, da,
Yeah.
da. Could you imagine that? Like, maybe in certain parts, like, riding up to Hyrule Castle for your final confrontation or something, that would work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not every single time you're outside. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
Like, maybe different regions could have different themes, but then how to blend the regions together.
That's
and,
honestly,
you know?
can I like just kind of sidetrack for a moment?
Yeah.
I've been playing Black Desert Online, which is an MMO, but honestly, they get this music shit right. Honest, like for real.
Interesting.
Like what you said, each region has a different theme, and they have a different theme based on if you're walking there or if you're riding your horse there. And if you explore some new territory, there's Calpheon, and if you ride your horse near Calpheon, the most gorgeous, like I can't even explain it. It's so like Latin and like oh man, it's amazing when you're riding on your horse and you hear this all of a sudden just go through the headphones like to your ears, and you're exploring a completely new place, and you're just here like da 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 da, like I don't even know. It's gorgeous, and I wish that like more games were like Black Desert in terms of how they seamlessly put in all this different music, all these different regions, and they have the huge range from something that's boisterous and triumphant like that to something that is super subdued, super quiet and peaceful. Like I'm gonna forget the name of the town, but there's one town that oh my god, it's just so calm and relaxing, and you just want to stay there for like days because it's just so peaceful. And I guess maybe because I'm biased towards all of that, hearing all that beautiful, wonderful music, and kind of expecting Zelda to do something similar, and it doesn't. Does something completely different. But I know that doing that, different regions with different music, can work, because it does work for
Chrono Trigger.
Black Desert. And Chrono Trigger, yes. Back to that. It's true, though. It is just a little disappointing, just in my personal opinion, that, you know, the music that I was so anxious to hear isn't really that iconic or thematic for the most part.
So I wonder if there's like a cinematic game or like a very modern game in recent history. So Tara, you mentioned BDO, but if there's one that's like sticks out, Sab, in your mind as kind of getting the music right, like maybe a good combination of memorable tunes and good like underscoring music.
See, I have a very limited amount of video games in my repertoire. I mean, I honestly think Chrono Trigger does a pretty good job of that.
Right, but I mean like more modern ones.
I mean,
what about like Ori? What do you think about Ori?
Right.
I did not play
So
it.
Ori, yeah, so this is like I'm not framing my question like perfectly well, because I'm not thinking of like independent games like where it's like a platformer almost. Thinking of like your more kind of like modern big blockbuster type games. Like, is there any, right? Like because I'm having trouble thinking of something that's headed in the right direction, like according to like my tastes, right? Because I always end up feeling that the music is lacking. But I will say, I know this is not like totally new, but like Super Mario Galaxy type stuff.
Ooh, yeah.
I love that music, and that's like fully orchestrated. It's great. Like I can sing like a million of those tunes, right? There's not literally a million, but yeah, like I could sing back a lot of those tunes. But they're like beautifully orchestrated, and like, you know, each planet has its own like theme, and you can so that's one example I can kind of think of. The Fire Emblem stuff, but again, like it's interesting because it's not like Fire Emblem is kind of sort of cinematic, kind of sort of. I mean, they have cutscenes, right?
Yeah.
That music is great, but again, it's not really the kind of game I'm like thinking of here. Like, I'm thinking of, like, Uncharted or Fallout 4 or, you know, your Skyrim, you know, something like that, right?
Right.
So, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's any game like that. Commenters, people listening, please let me know if there is something. Oh, maybe Nier.
Ooh, yeah, Nier.
Automata, like, that's, like, some good music.
Oh, man. Especially the dynamic themes. Yes. Give me them strings.
So I think, I mean, I know that the audio teams on a lot of these games, like, obviously they favor visuals, right? And gameplay itself, like the physics engines and things like that, right? And the 3D animation and stuff. So I'm just wondering, like, or hoping that in the future, maybe the audio team is given a little bit more weight.
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that's all. And I hear construction in the background. Hello, living downtown Toronto.
It could just be the timpani, honestly. It's so loud
I also hear the timpani, but I also hear like from outside. Like a buzzsaw or something. Go eat dinner, buzzsaw man.
Stop playing timpani! Oh my god.
Or it's nice and quiet here, aside from like my neighbor playing some basketball. But
Okay.
I'm usually the one making lots of noise.
Are we good?
We're good.
I think so.
Whee! I
Yay.
guess stop.
Whee!
Music.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.